So the tools for recording, they are within the render tab up here on the top ribbon. Um, and again, it's a very primitive tool for Rhino, but again, we gotta recognize that they are providing something for us. Again, it definitely could be improved on, but we can tell that it's not necessarily a tool meant to be used thoroughly. I think it's just again, it's giving us the option of creating an animation. It might not be the best animation in the world, but nonetheless, it's provided for us, right? So basically, we have three tabs. Um, the most setup is done right here on the first one. We have, of course, the play animation and the record animation, both of which we're going to be using, and I'll talk more about that in a second. Now, the way that these animations work, right, and we can see that if I if I habilitate any of the tools, right? Well, first off, let's click on the let's see, how's it called? They call it the animation tools, right? So there's this button right here. If you click on that button right there, animation tools, right? So we click there, and we have four four tools, right? So we can set up a sun study. It can be either a sun study in the left click, or a right click will give us a seasonal sun study. Really cool. The next one, on moving to the right, if you press the left button, would be a setup flight through animation, right? It's a flight through animation. The next one would be to set up a path animation, right? So the first one, well, the first one is a sun study, right? The second one is a fly through. The third one is a path. So fly through versus path, we're actually going to see what the main difference is between those two. And then the last one is set up a 360-degree turntable animation, which I think we could more or less figure out what that means. It's going to be a 360, kind of like just rotation. Let's go ahead and take a look at these. I'll actually start with what the class actually asked about, which was the path the kind of like the animation through the building. And so if we click on that tool, right? I mean, click there and go to set up flight through animation, and we look into our command line up here, right? Command line says select path curve for camera and target. So it's asking us for a path, and it's a curve, right? So what do we associate this with? Well, with curves. And again, remember that in Rhino terminology, a curve, right, is any of these tools, right? Well, actually, I'll take that back. That's the point and that's the selection. But all of these ones right here are curves, right? And I think the ones that lend themselves better for this animation would be the polyline, maybe, but most likely the curve tool, right? Which is that one right here. And as you can see, I have gone ahead and created this three layers right here: cam, cam 2, cam 3. I was just testing it. It's been a little bit that I don't use it myself. Um, but after playing with it a little bit, I mean, again, it's so intuitive, it's so simple that you get it right away. So after again, going back to the tool right here, we can tell that primarily what this accent, it's on a curve, a path of a curve. So you can see that within the drawing right here, I have gone ahead and drawn some curves, right, with different colors. So if I click on any of them, I'll start with this pink one right here. The tool, the animation tool continues, right? So set animation. So we have a number of objects to fill in right here. So we have the number of frames, and that's a number that we can set up. We have a file tab, which I'll explain more about what these are, right? We have a capture method, right? So Rhino is set up to render viewport. We have the viewport that we want to capture, and we have the animation name. Okay, so let's take a look at what each of these ones are. So I think maybe in order to really understand what these animations are, we should maybe talk about what we're gonna get at the end. And it is an animation. Um, However, what we get at the end is actually a bunch of photographs, right? So we get all of these images from Rhino once we run the animation, right? And right, I'm scrolling through them. You see, I started on the animation 1. Now I'm in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if I leave my key pressed down on my keyboard, I'm pressing my arrow right here. What do we get? Well, I'm scrolling through the images, but after scrolling through each of the images, right, ultimately, what do we get? We get the animation, right, which is pretty much the essence of a moving picture, right? I mean, of a video. It's that it's a number of still images move sequentially, right? That gives us the illusion of movement, right? So that's basically what the software is creating, right? Rhino is creating exporting a number of images that put together what gives us the animation, right? Now, there's an example right here of a test that I was running right here. Now, moving this aside and this over here too, now we can actually answer this question of number of frames, right? Well, the number of frames is just, again, how many of these photographs is going to export. And I can just tell you that the logic is that the least amount of frames, the shorter the video will be, right? And the faster it will be, right? The more frames, the longer the video will be, and the slower it's going to go. So that makes sense right here, which then in turn makes sense for the file type, right? Again, with that logic, it's exporting all of these images. These are still frames, right? That again, after having a number of them, that's what gives us the movement or the animation. So we set up to 25. It's going to give us 25 right here. Right now, it's set up to I think I set this one to a 500, but I canceled it, right? Okay, so then moving along, right? So capture method, right? This area right here. Well, we can recognize it, right? It's a render viewport. So if we click on that, it has a render full, render preview, wireframe shaded, and we recognize all of those components right from our display modes. And as you can see from the images that have been exported, right? I mean, in this case, we're getting a rendered preview, right? Which is this one's right here. So you can probably see what happens if I switch this to a wireframe, ghosted. Again, we're gonna get that display mode in the animation. Probably for this project, since this is the final presentation, we want to have it. We want to have it a rendered viewport, right? We want to have it a rendered viewport. The reality is that probably we want to have a render full, or probably the best thing to do will be to have a render full. It's just going to take forever, right? I mean, it's going to render each frame. So you can really imagine what that's going to take, right? I mean, I started kind of playing with that and it was just going to take too long. But the rendered viewport does a really good job. And it's this image that I got right here, these images, and it's this test that I have right here, right? So not bad at all. So the render viewport. Moving through the different options that we have here. Next we have the viewport, which is a logical, right? But right now I'm in my street perspective 3. So that's really what I want to animate, right? That's the viewport that I want to work on. And lastly, we have the animation name, which you can see that it's the name that is being assigned to the animation when we export it. Now, I have additionally created a folder where all of these images are going to go, and I'll talk more when we're ready to press our record setting. Okay, so those are the basics between the setup. So let's maybe do a test. Let's maybe leave it at 25 frames. Let's do something maybe funky. Let's do a ghosted viewport. Let's leave that to JPEG. Let's leave the viewport and click OK. All right. So again, remember, we picked this pink path right here. Okay. So that's it. It's set up. Now, how do we see the animation? Well, we have to go into the play button right here. We do that. Click there. And there it was. All right. So I'll do it again. Play. There it is. So again, let me hide this other curves right here, so to see what happened, right? So again, we followed this pink curve as the path. We set that pink curve as the path of the camera, right? So that's exactly what we're getting. If you guys notice, it's also ghosted, and it's so fast and it's so quick because it was only 25 frames. Let's go back to our settings, right? Set this up again. Again, it was the flight through animation. Select the curve again. It's going to be this pink curve right here. Now let's increase the number of frames right here. Let's do maybe 5 times that, right? Let's do 125 frames. Let's leave it at JPEG. Let's leave it at ghosted. Everything the same, and right now for right now that's okay. So again, that's it. We hit OK. Now we hit play, and we're able to see the same animation with much more frames, which in turns make it go longer, right? And consequentially slower. Let's try it again, right? Select the same path. Let's maybe not try 500, right? Which I think it's something on the nice end, right? So we hit OK. We hit play, and we get our animation there. Right, so I mean, much lower, much more detail. Now that's not good. That's what's happening right there. But I mean, we're gonna talk about now how to properly set it up. Okay, so um, so we now understand the basics, right? And again, we're working right now with the first setting right here, which is the fly through animation, right? We'll talk about the path animation in a second. Um, so what's happening, right? Well, we have, so the way that I live to see this is sort of the movie making, how do we call it, camera rail. Are we gonna get anything like that? um, yeah, right. The way that I kind of picture it is it's something like this, guys, right? So there's a path on the ground, right? Call it rails, or again some sort of a something that, right, like this right here. That again, the camera is mounted there, and that's moving through that path. Now, the camera though, it's not rotating. So as it's curving, right, it captures that angle, right? So you're gonna see what I mean right now in a second, versus some of these images, for example, that you see that, so you are in a rail, but also the camera can move. That's what the other setup does, the second animation type. We'll talk about that. Um, but so that's the idea, right? We're creating a path where the camera is going to act on, right? So if that is the case, let's see. So again, we run the animation. It's again, it's not really important to see here. We're not really seeing the building, right? I mean, now there we're seeing the building, right? That's good. That's good, right? All right. Approaching the entrance, good, right? Okay. But I mean, that's not working, right? I mean, we got to do something about that, right? It's moving, right? But it's just too close to the building right there. Okay, and that would be that right there. So the good thing is that we can just modify the path. And how do we modify the path? Well, we can select the curve, and it can be something as simple as moving it, or rotating it. Whoops, not that, but the path, right? The path right here, can rotate that. Or even better, with much more control, I can actually edit each of these points right here, right? And I can actually move them, right? And I can actually start editing those, right? So for example, I can move all of these ones actually over here, right? So maybe I move this ones over here, I move this ones over here, right? And I move this one over here, right? Even that, you'll see that it'll have an effect, right? So now the animation, again, the way that the curve path is set, right? I mean, we're just approaching the building now. It has a lot of wiggling and kind of like rotation which I mean, it's not ideal, right? I mean, we don't really want to make anyone dizzy, right, with these animations, right? But still, we got so we took care of that. Now we can keep adjusting this, right? So I mean, again, I can now it's as simple as I can select it, move it entirely a little bit further back, right? And let's give it a shot, right? So play. So again, good. Now we're approaching the building, but let's see what happens right here, right? I mean, now we're not as close to the building, but the curve did a turn. And again, as I mentioned, this camera is on a rail, but is not able to rotate his head, right? So imagine that you're on a roller coaster, and you're moving on the roller coaster, right? But again, on the roller coaster, technically we can, well, depends how fast we're going, right? But you know, it could be said that we could rotate our head and, you know, kind of like look around. But in this case, we can't, right? We're only seeing front. So what happens at the end of the animation is that, again, the camera is pointing which direction? That one right there. So we're not really seeing towards the building, right? So again, we would have to edit the path, right, of this guys right here. Whoops. Let's lock this guy right here, which is street, so that it's not messing with us. Right, so if I okay, let's lock the sidewalk. Um, all right, and then I can start maybe moving. Whoops, but not down, right? I mean, I can start moving them a little further back. Again, careful with all of this curving, right? I mean, we're gonna make someone dizzy, and you're gonna see what I mean right now. Right? I mean, you can kind of like already see what's gonna start happening, right? Um, it's gonna be very, 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 very not good. But let's check it out. Probably I could have increased the frames so that I don't have to wait that much. So that way I can just see a fast preview. But here it is, right? I mean, so again, we have that whole kind of like turning. Um, not good at all, guys, right? I mean, not good at all. No one likes this, right? I mean, no one likes to be kind of like just you know, this dizziness. So we have learned that this kind of curving things, I mean, it could be a tool, and we can use it smartly, right? We can use it again consciously, but again, let's be careful with that. Okay. Now, if that is the case, right, let's maybe bring in some other layers that I have drawn here. Right, so I'll turn off a pink layer because, well, maybe we can learn from that, right? So here, just so that you can see, I'm gonna maybe go into ghosted so that I can select now this green curve. I have set it up right here, right? Now I'm going into the building, right? Now it's something to definitely discuss, right? I mean, are we just gonna jump from the sidewalk to the building? Probably not. We really want to go through the we probably want to go through the doors and then somehow pop up back up here and then go up the stairs, right? But you know, we'll take a look at that. But for right now, if we actually take a look into this curve right here, right? Let's see how animation there would work, right? So if I press play, right, I'm still on the previous curve path, right? So if I press escape from the animation, what do I have to do? I have to go back to the animation tools. I set up a new fly through animation, right? Select a path curve, right? So I select this green path right here. Let's maybe do a 200 just so that we get a quick taste of how this is working. Right, so click OK. Now we press play. And then now here we go. All right, now we're inside. Again, right? If we go back to our setup right here, fly through animation, we select the curve. Again, remember that for the purposes of the project, let's do it a rendered viewport. right? And again, we'll talk about ideal number of frames, but since we're doing a just a test, right? I mean, 200 will do. Let's play it again. A little bit better, right? A little bit better. Now, in this case, I'm doing an interior view, right? But it's very choppy, right? I mean, I'm kind of like walking through stairs, and it's a lot of like very unrealistic stuff. Um, Again, all of that can be manipulated by these nodes, right? So I mean, that point right there, maybe I send it all the way into the building, right? But maybe I send it up a little bit, right? So we start kind of racing right there. And then we start kind of being inside of that building right here. Let's see, where are you? Where's the next point? If you don't see your points, no, they are on. They are on, right? So let's see where the next point is. Right? I could probably hide this, hide it, so that I see this curve right here. Oh, there it is. Right, so I can bring this guy up. Right, and again, I can bring this guy up right here. I can bring this guy up and maybe a little bit further back. So I'm kind of, I guess what we should be doing is tracing the eye level of someone walking through this, right? But I mean, again, part of creating an interesting animation and video, right? I mean, it's okay. Is it just about going up and down this? I mean, do you maybe circulate around a specific area? So I'm just showing you the basics, guys, just so that you understand the concepts. But definitely, there's a lot of exploration to be made with the tool, right? But at least the main concepts, remain for sure, right? Whoops. So again, we're editing the points of the curve so that we actually can um, set up our animation path, right? So you see that I'm kind of like doing that. And it kind of ends abruptly over here, right? That is also something to maybe kind of consider, right? I mean, okay, is that really how um, how we want this to kind of end, right? I mean, kind of like that's it. Um, let's see. Point. Alright, I'm gonna have to come back to you guys how to add a control point. It would be helpful to know how to add control points to the curve once it's made. I want to say I don't want to waste time on that right now, but control curve delay. Alright, I'm gonna have to come back to you guys on that. I would like to, for example, add more points over here so that I don't have to redraw it and control a little bit more of the path. But now that this is done right here, we go back to render tools up here, and then we hit play and see what happens. All right. So notice that the object that was, well, careful, no, because I press hide to hide one of the layers right here, and when I run the animation, it does not unhide it, which is good to know because it could be actually helpful for certain animations to hide certain components. So let me go ahead and press show. So we get that layer back. I'm going to go back to shaded mode right here. Click play again. Now that front layer is back in there, right? And again, now we're moving through the interior of the building. But again, this is kind of too fast, right? I mean, it's still kind of fast. So I found that I mean, about 500 start being nice, but I mean, again, it just depends. Again, what do you want this for, right? I mean, is it just one animation? Is it multiple animations, right? So anyway, that's the idea of the um, fly through animation. I think is the easiest one to use, probably the most approachable. Now we have a second option, which is now that path animation, And that one is really interesting, actually, right? That one is really interesting. So let's see. Could I maybe show it with this maybe orange layer right here? So I'm going to draw, I want to show you guys what the difference is and how do they differ. So if I draw a line, here in the middle, actually I'll draw a vertical line. Right? So I'll do that. Right? So there's a line right here. So again, we go back to the render tools, we go back to the animation tools, and again, the tool that we're after, oops, I cannot do that, is the second one, right? Now we're doing a path animation versus a fly through. So path versus fly through. I don't know how much the names help, but so path animation is going to actually ask us for two inputs, right? So the first is select camera path curve or point, right? Press enter to select last camera path. So I'm going to select one curve as the path, save that one. And then now it's asking me to select the last path target. And I'm actually going to select as the last path target so that I can show you guys what that means. This line that I just drew right there. So let's see what this does. Okay, let's hit play. So we're going along the path. Now remember that on the other option, you were not able to turn the camera. In this case, we do. So the second line or point that we set up is actually the target that we're actually going to be looking at all the time while we're in the roller coaster, right? So as we move through the path right here, right? Over here, this path that goes into the building and does whatever, right? Our eyesight is going to be constantly looking at this point, right? So from all of these points right here, we're going to be staring at this point over here, right? So no matter where we are along the roller coaster path, we continue looking at that, right? So let me clear out the screen. Let me go ahead and run it again so that we can take one more look, right? So again, we are now again addressing our view to the object that it's imaginary right there. Right? I mean, notice that somewhere along there, but our center point, our eyesight has not moved direction. Now, again, it just depends what we're trying to do, right? I mean, what the outcome is. Maybe that's what we want, right? I mean, move through somewhere with always a target on point, right? I mean, okay, so you want to move along this circulation, but always looking to a specific area. What's really interesting, guys, is that if we actually start combining those two things, right? Let's go back to that setting, right? Path animation. Now notice that I have two curves on top of each other, right? Check this out, because as I select one, right? And then I select the second one as the last target, right? And I run it, notice what happens. So now I'm going along the path, but since the other line was stacked, my eyesight is always going to be above the path that I selected, right? So I don't know if you can see how there's the two lines. So one is the line that is going to guide the camera, but as I move along the path, I'm going to be looking up. So they complement each other, right? So what's really interesting, guys, is that if you actually, that's why I have this squiggly line right here. So if let me hide that and that. So, okay, so if that's the case, what if I have a path? Right, I have that path that is going along the building. That's the pink line that I just drew. And then since I'm going to set this other line, this orange one, right, this orange one over here, I'm going to set it as my target. What does that mean? Well, when I'm here at this point, I'm going to be looking at there. When I'm here, I'm going to be looking at there. When I'm here, I'm going to be looking there. When I'm here, I'm going to be looking there, right? here, there, right? So it's a combination, which I think is actually really cool, right? I mean, so one sets the path of my movement, the other one sets the target of my eyesight, right? So let's take a look at how that looks, right? So let's set it up again. Path animation, um, the path, and then now the target. So 200, play it. So remember where the path was? It was along the facade, right on the front. So that's what we are seeing, right? So it's a little bit. I think this one will take more practice to kind of master. But I think it's the most powerful one because it not only sets a path, but it also sets a target. So that means that we can actually move our head, right? So I can move and turn. Um, or I mean, it can be just as simple as the fly through. But again, we talked about what the fly through limitations is that it's just linear, right? I mean, we really don't turn our heads. We only are just moving on the roller coaster, right? And that's what this one is doing right here. Again, I just want to show you guys all of the different tools, but ultimately what it takes, guys, is for you to test them. Again, each project is different. Each you know, each intention of the projects are different. So I mean, it just takes some testing right there. Now there is the third one, right, which is the setup the 360-degree turntable animation, right? So, direction clockwise, right? File type render. Let's see what it does. Okay, play it, and it just does that. Right? So it's a turntable. It's a 360 animation, which is not bad, right? I mean, the thing though is that for this project, we really don't need that 360. I mean, I think in this case, what we do need is the experience through the facade system, right? I think there should be a way to set up the center. Let me see. Let me see if I select maybe this object right there, and then set up the 360 animation. Let's hit OK, play. No. So I guess I was trying to see if there's a way that you can set the target, like so if it's a 360 animation, like where's the center, you know? But I guess not. Okay. So nice to have. So I mean, again, I think the flight through it's good, or the path animation. Again, the path animation definitely give it a shot. I mean, again, it's gonna take some maybe practicing, right? But so for example, let's set up the path animation real quick. So that would be that one right there, with that one right there. Enter, and then we'll play it, right? So good. Now the curve right now, the target, it's on the outside of the system. So what I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna actually move it into the building and let's see what change do we get, right? So I'm going to maybe get this on the wireframe so I can kind of see what's going on, and then maybe just send it in there, maybe in between the structure and the glass. Let's see what happens. All right, let's go ahead and play. So right now there's not going to be a difference. It's just going to be until once we get into the building, right? So you see now, again, it's following that path that is inside the building. But again, it's kind of, and we really want to be careful with the whole kind of like making someone dizzy and saying, rather than being a tool and something helpful, it could be something that can damage the presentation, right? I mean, like, whoa, kind of like don't get carried away with that. All right. So actually, I don't know if I really enjoy that. So I think actually we're better off to leave it out, right? So we can do that now. So those are the settings right there for the animations. We can perhaps talk briefly about the sun studies. I think at some point you could use this information, right? Um, if you click right there on set up a 1-day sun study with your left mouse button. Right now, I'm not gonna go through all of this. Perhaps I should do another video, but I can just maybe show you right now that if I hit OK, right, and I hit play, right, I get that. Right? So again, it's the movement of the sun in 1 day. Right, so from sunrise, well, actually we can set up the start time, right, the start time in the morning, right, the end time, minutes between frames, this is pretty much the same, right, but the latitude and all of that, the rotation, um, which is pretty cool, guys. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Um, or we can do a seasonal sun study, right? Which I do a right click there. Notice that the settings remain very similar, and rather than working with time, we're working with dates, right? So we're going from um, June 1st, 2010 to June 1st, 2012. I'm curious to see that. Let's do that. Let's play that. That there it was. So there's definitely more exploration to be made there, but I think that could maybe go into a different video since we're not really doing sun studies. I mean, it is nice to see it though. You know, for example, I don't know if it would work if I set kind of like this view right here, right, and do an animation right here. How the sun would affect the interior at different times, right? So, and I think the date one worked better, right? So I can do that right there, play it, and we can see, I mean, the different effects of the sunlight on the building right there. But again, I think this does take a little bit more of a time right here, like the location. We'll set it right here locally, right? Hit OK. North angle clockwise to axis 0. That OK. Okay. So again, we have kind of like the movement of it. All right, guys. But again, so those are some tools. Definitely play with them. Hopefully they come handy. But I think particularly the path animation, it's the good one. Now, whoops, that's not the path animation. Let's set it up again. So it's this one right here, and this is the target. Now, let's get ready. So that's just the preview, right? So let's get ready to export this. How do we actually get the animation, right? Because all of this is just within Rhino. So again, let's say that we like, we'll do a 200 for right now so that it's not too long, right? But I think ideally you want 500 and above. We talked about so again, the number of frames, right? The format is a JPEG. We are capturing a rendered viewport, right? It's just the viewport, not a full render. We're doing this viewport right here, which is Street Perspective 3 for me. It's going to be different for you. And let's give this now a name so that we can, recognize this file, right? So we'll call this path animation test, right? And we hit OK, right? So again, nothing happened. I can play it. Now get a preview of it. Just careful crossing through all of your members, right? You want to make it as realistic as possible so that people can, experience this space. So let's say I'm good, I like it, right? Not like I did right now. Let's say that you did a better job, you like it, good. Now the last part is to actually get the recording, which is, we have to record it. So what this is going to do is going to generate all of those images that, again, I talked about, all of these ones right here, right? And plus this file right here, which is the little preview that it shows you right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that, right? So when we press record, right? The options are up here, right? So the first one and very important one is the target folder, right? Notice that it's that Rhino test folder that I created, right? So that's what's important, that you create one. You can do it in advance, or you can actually do it while you're here. So if you actually click on it, right, um, it brings this window right here, and you can navigate right here, and users. I think I put this sort of something under videos, Rhino test, and actually I'm going to create a new folder in there, right? So that I can call this vid test. It's just gonna throw them all in there, and if not, I'm gonna have all of the images right here, which is not a big deal. But I'd rather have their own. I'd rather each animation have their own folder, because again, remember, it's a bunch of files. It's just a bunch of images, right? So we make sure that that's the right folder location. We click OK. Now we have the location set up. The last thing would be, if we want to, do we want to see the animation while it's doing it, while it's exporting? And I always like to see it just so that I can keep track of what's going on, right? So I leave it set to OK, right? And press enter to start recording. So I press enter, and notice that it's moving slow, right? Because it's actually generating each of those frames. But if I go right here while it's doing that, right, while it's doing that, and I go into the folder that I set to import all of those images, right, you can see the beauty of technology working right there. And you see these frames kind of just go, right, 41, 42, 43, 45, 46, 47. It just keeps populating that folder, right, with each of the frames that it's actually capturing from here. So in essence, right, I mean, you can actually see that it's very simple what it's doing right here. It's just doing what you would do. Move your cursor, move around, export one image, export another one, export another one. It's just that here is automated, right? It's like boom, 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 boom. It does it for you, right? Now, so you have two options, guys, and I'll talk more a little bit more about that once this is done. Okay. So of course, actually, right, I mean, it's a little bit deceiving, because technically that's not an animation, right? It's a bunch of frames that you have to compile into an animation. And again, after you guys creating your teaser and your experimenting with the video making software that you guys are using, you should be aware that you have a bunch of photographs. You can just drag them into any video producing software, such as Windows Video Maker, whatever, and it will compile the video for you, right? So it's not actually a big problem. You can just drag them all, and it will turn it into a video, right? So the animation is done. Now, once it's done, it's going to open a browser window, and it's going to show you the preview. I guess that's Rhino's way of telling you, like, hey, here's your preview, or here's your animation, right? Um, so here it is, right? And you can see from the counter right here which frame it's on, right? So where I wanted to get is to, again, you have two options. Either you use the images that has exported, the Rhino has exported for you, and compile them into a video yourself, or you can use the video recording software that you're using to record your screen, to just run the animation that Rhino exports, and record it straight from your screen, and just crop anything that you don't need, such as, for example, all of this right here, all of this, you basically just would crop maybe kind of that that I'm not gonna get into that right now. I mean, I'll help you guys individually if you have any questions. But again, it's just again, either recording your screen with the animation running, or compiling all of those images into an animation on your preferred video editing software. I think, and again, remember that Rhino is gonna export all of the images, right? got 200 ones. And this file that you see right here, that for me is a Chrome. Again, if I open that, that's a link to the animation. And I mean, unless you guys know of a different way of, I wish there was a way that you could actually download this as a MP4 or whatever, but I guess not. So I mean, it's not the greatest tool, but oh, and what's cool is that here there's this tool, the bottom left, right, lift continuously, right? So I can actually click that, enter, and then press start. I'm just gonna keep going. So again, not the greatest tool. Again, there's other tools much powerful tools, but again, it is something for sure, and it can definitely help on this assignment. All right, so I just wanted to create this quick video on that. Thank you to Valeria for asking about this tool. Hopefully it works on Mac the same way. If not, I'll try to help out. Um, but let's see, guys. I just want to make sure that I'm not leaving anything behind. I hope not, guys. I hope not. All right. Well, anyway, guys, you know where to find me and how to get some answers to your question, guys. But definitely give it a shot. Try it. It's a fun tool. All right, guys. Thank you.